everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Miraculous Thinking. I'm your host, Elenique Marie, and with me, the one and only Crystal and Compton. And believe it or not, today we are wrapping up the surrender experiment. We really took our time with this one, Crystal, and I'm glad we did. I gleaned a lot from this, quite not that big a book, but still so much information.
Lots of information. And I think these final two sections were just kind of the payoff. It put everything into perspective. And I walked away thinking, I really like this book. I really enjoyed this read. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll be wrapping up sections 8 and 9 today. And then for the next couple weeks, we are going to start our experiment with the gene keys. I can't wait for that.
Me
I
too.
cannot wait. So if you want to explore the gene keys with us or read up about it before our next episode, you can do that at genekeys.com. And or you can order the books online on the website genekeys.com or Amazon. The author is Richard Rudd. And even though we are not going to be reading the books per se to discuss, in case that's of interest to you, you have those resources available. And YouTube, he has a ton of videos on YouTube.
And that is where we can also go to pull up our specific gene keys, like a chart, right?
Yes, he has something called the hologenetic profile, and it's free. He has so much free information on his site. It's just amazing. So check it out, genekeys.com.
I'm looking forward to that conversation very much. Before we get into today's conversation and wrapping up this book, I do want to remind everyone that if you have any comments or if you want to reach out to us and tell us something, you can always do so by writing us at miraculousthinking@gmail.com. Miraculous Thinking is one word, at gmail.com. We also have a Facebook group and a YouTube. So if you're not a part of these, links are in the description, but definitely follow us on YouTube, give us a good like, help us to grow there, and join us in our private community where we can have all kinds of conversations about the cool things we're talking about. We love to talk about it so much.
Let's talk about it.
Let's do
No
it.
big whoop. No big whoop, you know.
Well, I have to tell you, before I popped on with you today, I went and watched the Oprah Super Soul Sunday interview with Mickey Singer that she did in 2012. And then the algorithm told me that she did another interview with him 2022, so last year, because he's written another book. It's not The Untethered Soul, that's the first book. It's The Untethered Soul Revisited or something like that. And so they were talking about this new book where they kind of dive a little bit deeper into thinking and overcoming your thoughts and observing your thoughts and all of these things. But I just found Mr. Singer's presence so, I mean, I want to say joyful, but that's like an excitement, but just so steady and peaceful and lovely. And to hear him speak about all of these things that he's learned in his life. And he even talks about what we're going to get into today, which is like the indictment, honey. Okay, I was shocked.
Yeah.
I did not see that coming. I made a point not to look anything up. I was shocked. But he talked about this and he really wrapped everything up in a very spiritual bow, which to me, I kind of felt like I wanted a little bit more of in this book. But I think I could probably get that from The Untethered Soul, where he talks more about the spiritual connections and tenets of his particular philosophy. But to hear him speak about the indictment or to hear him speak about what he has learned in his many decades on the planet was just awesome. So I'm going to drop a link in the description of this video or this podcast for anybody who wants to take 45 minutes out of your day to just get a dose of Mickey Singer's energy and hear this cool conversation that he has with Oprah. And I'll drop the link to the other one as well, because I just listened to that right before I popped on.
Great. I didn't even know about that one. So I'll check it out as well. Can't wait to see, get an update from Mickey Singer.
I mean, he's still rocking a ponytail, honey. And he's still
it.
kind of the same old. I mean, he's super constant. And I really love that about him. And he's he's teaching like some simple things, but he's also such a cool demonstration of it and how it works and how you can be happy and liberated in your life. So I was just really inspired by that. Okay, well, let's get into this final two sections. What did you think?
Let's do it. I already kind because I remember I had read this book years ago and I knew that something big happens in the end, but I didn't remember exactly what. And so to be reminded, of course, I don't know, you're better at recapping these literal facts. You go ahead and tell us exactly what happened to Mickey in this last section of the book because
Okay.
you're so good with the statistics and the facts. I'm like, some stuff happened.
And then this is how I feel about that.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I kind of didn't take all the notes that I usually do because it was a continuation of him scaling his business and then merging his business and then like entering into a $1 billion deal, going to the White House, like the
Oh
medical
God.
managers, just getting all of these accolades. I think there's a version of it in the Smithsonian, and
Hmm.
that's all cool. But I'm like, get on with it. For me, I'm like, we
Yeah.
already. This is just a larger scale of what we talked about in the very beginning when he first walked into that Radio Shack and saw the computer and got inspired. But at some point, after he's merged with other companies, and they're making a lot of money. This whole thing is growing. I think they merged with WebMD and
Hmm. There,
Halcyon, and then
yes.
there's another.
Other one.
It doesn't
I
matter,
can't remember.
but there's a
Yeah.
big merger that takes place. But at some point, somebody in sort of the middle management area starts to take kickbacks for deals that are being made. And he's got kind of this elaborate siphoning fraudulent outfit that he's conducting with a few other people, stealing money from the company. And as people start to find out that this particular last name Davids, I forget his first name, that this person is stealing, the company itself, of which Mickey is the CEO, starts to conduct an investigation to see what this guy's doing, where's all this money going, and they start to put all these pieces together to realize, oh my gosh, he's running a huge fraudulent operation. And as they're doing that, this David's guy who's running the fraud catches wind of it and goes to the FBI and
Hmm.
tells them that he has done these things, but it's because the upper executives, of which Mickey is one, told him to do all of these
Hmm.
shady things. He stole, I think, ultimately $6 million. And so he turns himself into the FBI for a lower deal or a better deal. So I think he only got a year in prison, and he
Hmm.
turns in all of the executives. And so I think, I forget where Mickey was when he gets the call from somebody at the campus, and they're like, get home now because we're getting raided. We've got dozens of FBI agents crawling all over the building and they are confiscating everything. And he has no idea, Mickey,
Hmm.
why? Because if we believe him, and I do, especially after watching him, he's conducted himself with the utmost integrity. And he knows I've got nothing to hide. I've done nothing wrong. And so he walks back into the building, talks to the FBI agents, and observes. And the cool thing about this is that as this is all going down, he's observing maybe a potential tendency or desire to fall into disturbance and reaction and get all caught up and afraid. I mean, you've got this place is crawling with agents. Clearly, they think they've got something. And he knows that he can fall into a place of fear and anxiety, but he instead leans back into this higher him, this higher self, which is this place of God, this place of peace. And he kind of just lets the disturbance happen. And the disturbance is real. This is happening. We've got agents in the building, but he's not being moved by it, which is just this beautiful demonstration of like the hardest thing he ultimately ever goes through, because he goes on to get indicted
Hmm.
along with some other executives. And I think the prosecutor takes him to about 4 weeks before trial. And this is a 6-year process that he's in the middle of this whirlwind, out of which he writes The Untethered Soul,
Yeah.
which is an Oprah book club classic and one of the most important books of her life, according
Wow.
to her. So he's in this place of stillness, this deep place of connection, and he can write this beautiful channel, this beautiful work called The Untethered Soul, all while on the outside, his life, for all intents and purposes, is falling apart. What ends up happening is 4 weeks before it goes to trial, the prosecutor knows they have nothing on him, and his very adept and skillful lawyer gets him off, and they drop all the charges against him. There's a couple of other executives that have to go to trial, and shockingly, they're convicted. and they've done nothing wrong. And Mickey's like aghast. But again, there's this deeper sense of peace. All is well, all is right in the world. And the judge overseeing the entire circus ultimately sets aside the verdict, saying the jury just got it wrong. And those two executives get off free as well. So all throughout this book, we've seen him come up against some adversity, definitely be challenged to try something new for yourself, even though you don't necessarily want to. He becomes a businessman, he becomes a programmer, he becomes the builder of homes, all the things he's done in this magical life because he has trained himself to lean back in the face of it, in the present moment, face of adversity or anything else. Lean back, let that play out, and navigate from the place of that. And that, I think, is what he wants to teach us to do. I think the surrender experiment is super heavy on the details of his life,
Mhm,
whereas
mhm,
the untethered soul, which I have not read, is more about how do you lean back? How do you identify the thorns in your life and allow the thorns to be removed? And so I might be more interested to read that book
mhm.
because that's kind of the stuff that I'm really turned on by. But nonetheless, this was a fascinating story. I can't believe he went through all of that.
Oh my god.
So,
He
what are
was
your
just an
thoughts?
yeah, I was I was amazed. Just I can't even imagine what it's like to build a billion-dollar company, and suddenly one day when you've been doing everything right, you're raided by like FBI, and then your life gets hijacked for 6 years in an eternally pending, criminal investigation that you don't even know what the repercussions of it will be. And like you said, his ability to stay in his stillness and to utilize that challenge to create a book like The Untethered Soul, which I've read and is incredible as well. I think that it's a testament, to his training and to the idea that these difficult things that happen to us and we see him go through this is I would consider the first big difficult thing, like, I don't it doesn't seem like, he went through his divorce and everything, but this was really, like, next level because he was so proud of the company he created, and he was so invested in the company he created, and he had to let all that go. He had to let his pride go, he had to step away from the role of CEO, he had to step away from being on the board of directors, so, again, just letting go of that persona that had been built, around his success. So for me, it was nice to see him very clearly beyond what we had already read, seeing him utilizing his training and his spiritual discipline and applying it to even some of the most difficult things that anybody could go through. So yeah, as usual, just amazed, amazed by him.
And, Oprah kind of hit him up about this. Like, are you serious? Like, she didn't know that he wrote The Untethered Soul in the midst of this indictment. She
Oh
was
wow.
gobsmacked. But she's like, are you serious? You can really stay in the stillness and use this as an opportunity. And he's like, absolutely. And in fact, I recognized it for the opportunity that it was. I knew that this was an opportunity for God to take out these last big chunks of me, that the me that wants to be afraid, the me that wants to defend myself to other people who think I've done something wrong, like these parts of my ego and my psyche
Mm.
that are
Hmm.
not me. This is just a huge, like, orchestrated event to help me transcend and transmute. So, like, I'm like gagged because that's key to me, to be able to recognize moment to moment, day to day, when whatever is being presented to you on the screen of your life is only for your edification and benefit. The Bible says all things work for the good of those who love God, every single thing, bad, good, or indifferent. And
Hmm.
not only recognize it for the opportunity, but then partner with whatever is showing up in your life to accelerate and amplify and expand the transmutation, like to come out on the other side, not the same person as when you
Yeah.
went into the thing. Like, how many of us don't even recognize that when you're fighting with your husband, this is an opportunity? Because you're being triggered, this is an opportunity to understand something about yourself. But we just continue to fight, we continue to blame, we continue to deflect, and we never see it for the invitation to transcend. And everything is only ever exactly that.
Absolutely. I think like we've talked so much about in all these episodes that we've done about how do you use your challenges as opportunities for growth. And this week and all these weeks that I was sitting so much with fibromyalgia pain and everything, and I've been exploring the relationship of pain to awakening and to understanding the messages that you don't want to look at, but that your body's trying to tell you. And when I started to change my thinking about the pain being something that I had to get rid of or placate or find a solution, desperately looking for a solution. And when I just said, wow, there's pain here. What if it's my body trying to tell me something? What if it's my emotions trying to tell me something? What if I could use it to wake up to whatever it is that I'm asleep to whatever it is that I don't want to look at? And just that shift in willingness changed the experience. So while I can't say that I had no pain or that, suddenly it went away and I felt great, there was a different sense of being in that pain and it seemed like it had purpose.
Hmm.
So I could kind of be friends with it. Be like, okay, thank you. Something must be very wrong here that you are barking so loudly,
Or
right?
something is in
So,
the process of healing and moving. And I'm feeling the process of this
yeah,
healing.
also. So I
Yes.
think it was just great. And again, it's what you said, like everything's perspective, everything's mindset, everything's a story to tell about what's happening. It's never what's actually happening. And he's a very good example of that, that no matter what happens to you in your life, you decide what you're going to do with it and how you're going to respond and how we have this part of us, most of us, that is so happy to be the victim, because the victim is never wrong. The victim has the right to be angry or act badly or lash out because you're the victim. And I think what you see with him is that he's saying, no, the victim is a role that you put on. And if you stay calm and watch the crazy stream, like just like you were watching the stream when everything was going well, now you're watching the rapids, but you're still watching. So just watch it. And I think he demonstrates that so beautifully.
Oprah actually said, well, I mean, are we really just, I'm paraphrasing because she didn't get to the heart of like our question, which is, are we really supposed to surrender to just everything?
Right.
She kind of asked that question and he said, no, of course not. And everything that's happening out here is real. It's
Hmm.
really in your life. It's about where are you, the higher you as that's happening. You're the observer, you're in the stillness, you're in the God of who it is that you are. But he also said something interesting, which was when something's being presented to you, it's not that you're just surrendering and going limp and saying, okay, God, you're taking over. It's
Hmm.
that you are leaning into it and harmonizing with it, which
Hmm.
is another way of saying co creating with an affirmative positivity and optimism, saying yes to what is being presented and moving with it. So some of us are, well, we are all always being offered things, I believe, from the universe, from spirit. It's just that A, we're not paying attention. Okay. We're not even
Hmm.
noticing it. And B, we can't be moved out of our stuckness to
No.
harmonize with the thing that's being offered. And that's inside of us. That's what we need to learn how to do.
And because it takes the surrender, because it takes that. And we are so caught up. And I love how in human design it says that we should never take decisions from the mind, but from the body. And by body, they mean your instinct, your feeling, your gut, as opposed to just sitting there. If he had sat and just logically looked at the situation and just let mind run that show, he would have been paranoid. He would have probably over responded or under responded or given up or made a plea bargain, admitted guilt when there was no guilt, because the brain would have ran the statistics and said, it's better to do this because this is going to be the best out of all the terrible options that you have. And getting off scot free, that one's not going to happen because that's what brain would say, right? And so pick between the best of the worst. But he didn't.
Mhm.
He trusted his instinct. He sat and he came from a place of peace. And even though it must have been horrible to have this looming over you for 6 years, he allowed the body, the knowing to leave. And I think that's something that we've, like you said so much, with your program about reconnecting with the body, and the body knows, and how far we've gotten from our body in this society. Um, so far, like as you look even at our relationship with ourselves, and how much low self-esteem, and how many eating disorders, and how many things are, prevalent, especially among young girls and boys now, because of this Instagram and the 700 filters, um, everybody's sort of like at war with the body,
With what
as
is.
opposed to, yeah, instead of receiving it and being like, what a gift. This is the real intelligence. This is the real knowing. And allow yourself to follow it without overanalyzing, which is hard to do.
Oh, yes, without expectation. Another
Hmm.
super cool moment, though, was I don't know that he was ever attached to an outcome with this indictment. There's that moment that he goes into court. It's a small courthouse, and they've got all of these people in yellow or orange jumpsuits sitting in the jury section waiting to talk to the judge. And he makes peace with the reality that he might be one of them. And what like a full circle moment that is, because he's had this ministry for many years, ministering to inmates. And he's like, wow, maybe I'm going to become one. He's not attached to winning. He's not attached
Yeah.
to comfort. He's not attached to any of that. He's just like in the moment, so very present. And another thing I wanted us to talk about and to suss out, because I'm wondering what you think about this, is when he does mention when the indictment comes in and people in his community hear about it, how he is inclined to defend himself. It makes me think of us, people, normies, the muggles,
Normies.
when something's happening that we don't think is fair, always wanting to tell our story, being so compelled to talk endlessly about this in defense of ourselves or shifting blame to somebody
Hmm.
else, and how it really is a higher path just to be quiet and let your beingness be the witness and the testimony of what is true and what is not true, and how that is such a hard thing to do, to just shut your mouth.
So hard. And the other part is, people sometimes are not comfortable when you do that, because I have been consistently over the last years consciously trying to say less and listen more. Like literally listen twice as much as you speak, really connect with someone. Like don't be trying to hog up the whole thing. And when I do that, especially when I do it to the degree that I would want to, everybody starts to ask me, are you okay?
Mhm.
Is something wrong? And I'm like, no, I'm just giving you my undivided attention. So I think the silences and the being embodied actually is threatening for a lot of people. And in order to get along with the culture, right? Because how does it work? It's a tennis match when you normally talk to somebody. It's like, I couldn't sleep last night. Oh, it was so bad. The other person says, "Oh my God, you're having trouble sleeping? I had trouble sleeping last week. You don't even know. It was so difficult for me, but I took an Ambien. You took an Ambien. I also took an Ambien, and I took a Tylenol. You know what I mean? So it's like a competition, like a peeing competition, to see who's worse, but no one's listening. Nobody is listening. They're just waiting for their turn to
Yeah.
say their thing. And when you don't want to do that dynamic, they don't know what to do with that. Because you're like, oh, okay, you're sad. You want to talk about that? Mm, not really. Okay. Are you waiting for me to say I'm sad? Like, I don't know. So it's this thing where we want authenticity, we want people to listen to us, but then when people actually show up like that, it feels very artificial and strange and weird and threatening. So then people get nervous and want you to go back to the way you used to be. So it's hard to be in the world authentically.
Yes, absolutely. And often, if you are just observing, listening, being present, and I heard Shia LaBeouf recently talk about the ministry of presence,
Mm,
just being there for somebody and saying hi and being with them, and how that is so beautiful, and
mhm.
so, but often when we are just being present, The other person's like, okay, something's wrong here because
That's
we're
it.
not doing the ping pong. We're not doing
That's
the
it.
competition. So now let me talk more. And I'm going to keep filling this empty space of silence, which is not empty at all, by the way. It's
Exactly.
filled with the gold of eternity. I'm going to keep filling this silence with more words so that I can distract myself away from feeling what my body, my emotions, my mind, and my spirit is begging me to pay attention to. And it's so
Absolutely.
interesting, Elenique, because for a period of, I don't know, a few years, I kept encountering people like this. And you'd have to know me in my real life to know, irrespective of the fact that I have 9,000 podcasts and I'm on YouTube and I'm talking all the time. I don't talk a lot. I don't sit and talk to people. I'm actually a little socially awkward around people. And for a period of time, I was attracting people who would just not stop talking, and not about important things at all, but just, and also
Mm.
retelling stories that they have told me 70,000 times. I've heard this story. You just told me this story yesterday. You're telling it again for another 20 minutes of my life. I would have whole conversations in my mind with my angels, like, you better step in. Somebody better step in and tell this
Somebody
person to
help.
stop. Help me, God. Or
Oh,
just being like held hostage by people who need to vomit endless words on me. And I was looking a long time for the lesson in that. Why is this happening to me? Because I don't
mhm,
think I do this to anybody else. I'm super socially appropriate, actually,
mhm.
and I never figured it out.
Yeah, you're like, "I don't know what that was about."
Why do you think God was sending me all these people?
That's a hard question because, it can have so many different reasons. Sometimes just us being so unconditionally present makes people vomit because, overshare because they're so starved for that. So anyone that can hold a space for someone where they actually have a chance to get a word in edgewise and the other person's actually listening is like an addictive
Mm-hmm.
type of situation for most people. Um, I've also found that sometimes we have this karma with like narcissistic people, which for certain I know for a fact that I have because it's just like a theme in my life, where you you especially family, you can have certain family that you want to love them, you want it desperately, but like anytime you're around them you can have 6 months, 2 months you haven't seen the person, and then they come and they talk your ear off about what's been going on with them, and then they get up and leave and you suddenly realize this person hasn't even asked me how I am.
Mm-hmm.
How are you? What's new with you? And it always shocks me because I am so interested in what's happening with the people that I love, like I want to know. So it's always like blows me away that this person has such little interest in other people that they can just talk and talk and talk, and it never occurs to say, how are you?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. And I ask myself that question, why do these things happen? Why are these people in my life? And I'm not sure yet because I'm not sure how to deal with it, to be
Well,
honest.
what I think I came up with, I'm going to run it by you. And let me preface by saying I'm not claiming to be a spiritual adept of any kind. Okay. I'm not like claiming to be like this higher version of who I actually am. But at the time that this was happening in my life, I was most definitely going through spiritual transformation. And I would say kind of an up leveling of my understanding and my connection. And that's the thing about light. And that's the thing about divine light. When you are doing what you do to fill up with that, whether that's through your spiritual practice, your study, your fellowship, any of these, when you are consciously becoming the instrument for the light, people are attracted to this. And the light isn't about just being in you because light is dynamic. It moves through you and from you. You always express the light that you hold.
Yeah.
And so just by being silent and being you, but the holder of this higher light, this is a higher light than is currently available in the matrix and the Maya, honey.
Hmm.
People don't know why they are attracted to this, but they are. They come closer. And what does the light do? It shines. It shines into them. It shines into their stuff. It shines into their shadow. And now they're divesting of all their stuff. Now they're talking. Now they're feeling uncomfortable. All of a sudden, somebody's crying. And I'm like, I'm just
Hmm.
standing here. I'm
Mhm.
literally just, now you're asking me out on a date. Now you're in love with me. And I'm just
Oh my
standing
god, yeah.
here, right? I bet you relate to that. Being in the light, and the light is actually moving through them, causing them to go through all of these energetic gyrations. And I think at the end of the day, and the end of that period of time for me, I was like, oh, that's an affirmation that the process I'm currently going, it's working. I am embodied here. And
Yeah,
people are at various levels of consciousness, right? They don't always realize that they're shifting around the light, but we
right.
always shift around the light to accommodate it.
Yeah. And it also shows us our shadows, right? Like even as we're being the light, when you have this story of the victim of why didn't this person ask about me or how I am, right? That's the whole little victim person that wants to judge and feel attacked, even when perhaps it's not an attack. It's just they're being what they're being. They're being who they are, like where they are. So why do you have to judge it? And why do you need people to show up a specific way? Like, where did that come from? Right? Like, no, this is not good enough. I need you to be like this, or I don't want to be around you. So I think that's what I do. Like, I try to take it as something that's alerting me to the fact that I have something to heal and another, something to process, but it doesn't keep it. And I think that's the thing I've learned about being spiritual is before I thought being spiritual was never being angry, right? Never being sad, never being mad, just really trying to like be in the zened out blissful place where no matter how horrible things are, you just let it, you're like, no, but I'm going to take the higher road. And now I realize, no, that is not what it is. It's so far from that. It's you being aware of where you are and owning it, even when it may be petty, even when it may be dark, but you're aware and you're working with it instead of like turning your back to it. And the other day I was reading a book. Oh, I think it's the one we're going to be reading, The Way of Integrity. We're going to love it, Crystal. Is
Okay, good.
and she talks about that there's two struggles within every human being. Cultural, like your conditioning, and your innate nature. And that the problem with most of us is that the conditioning has been so much that it has suppressed the what truly makes you happy. You don't even know. You don't even want to talk about it. You don't even want to explore it because you were told when you were a little kid and you said, I'm gonna paint for a living. And people are like, that's stupid. No, you can't make a living with that. So suppress, and become a banker or a doctor because that's what people want. And so she says that all these things that we feel inside, all the depression, the anxiety, the diseases, and all of that is that nature trying to wake you up and say, don't you see this feels icky? Don't you see this isn't you? Can't you see past all this BS that's been put on you and break out of it and stop people pleasing? And I realized then and there that the people pleasing is the biggest disease. It's the biggest disease. I think it's the cause of everything, the people pleasing, because you are so scared to be kicked out or not included or found lacking that you just are willing to give yourself up to please other people. And then you get old and you die and you're like, what was that for? So this is what I'm waking up to is the degree to it. We say, oh, when kids are teenagers, they want to fit in, with their group. It's literally the beginning of the end of the people pleasing. Like that's when you really, oh, everybody's wearing black eyeliner. Okay. Everybody pulled out all their eyebrows. I think I looked like Betty Boop for like 20 years, like because I just kept pulling out my eyebrows, to get that thin look from the 90s. I don't even
Hmm.
know. It was horrible. I mean, how come I couldn't see that? Because I was so busy trying to fit in.
Well, you are a projector. So
True.
I
True.
have less of an inclination to people please, although
Yeah.
in certain things, I mean, that's what we do when we market ourselves in whatever way we do it. But being a projector, I would imagine that you would feel that impulse probably pretty deeply. You really have to check yourself.
Oh
Am I
my
people
God.
pleasing?
Oh
Am
my
I
goodness.
reacting to my nature? Or am I standing in my
And even
nature?
the way you look at yourself, because you look at yourself through the eyes of others a lot of the time. And so then you find yourself lacking according to some standard. Like I was thinking about fashion and how everybody has different styles of fashion. And on YouTube, you can find a video for every style. And
Right.
the other day, I don't know why this video came in and it was old money aesthetic, the old money aesthetic. Get this is
Okay.
the thing. So it's supposed to be this sort of Ralph Lauren, Capri, South of France curated. I don't know. Good, good for you. Like, whatever. If that's your thing, go for it. But my point is, I was thinking to, and then they were showing this bag, and this is a dupe for that bag. And if you're and these are investments, that you have to make in your wardrobe for your bag and the whole, and nothing the matter with that. If you are really like a fashionista and that brings you joy, go for it. What makes me sad is that 70% of the people that are going to do it are not fashionistas that are expressing their love for Coco Chanel stripes. They're doing it because they want to appear and be perceived as something that, sadly, if you're watching a video about how to look old money, it's probably because you're not old money. So
Mhm.
right there's something that
Dissonance.
doesn't work, right?
Mhm.
So you're trying to fake something. For who? For whom? Cottage something, that look where everybody looks like they're a fairy running through the woods. And it's like, newsflash, it's not 1782, and you're not in, a magical forest, like drinking out of teacups that look like mushrooms. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? It's like
Right.
the degree to which we've taken these portals into disassociating from our life. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I love that antique vintage style. I love it. I love vintage, but not to the degree where the thing's going to take over my life and my whole identity is going to be cottage fairy, you know, fern loving. I don't know what, it's just, it blows my mind. And again, it's
Mhm.
that wanting to fit in, to
Yeah.
belong to a group. And it's sad.
Right. And that is just a symptom of not knowing who you really are, which the surrender experiment gets to the heart of, and or not liking who you think you are.
That's
Because you
it.
think you are your body, you think you are your education, you think you are your money, and you don't like that. And so I seek to project something other than what I am inherently, which is a fundamental misunderstanding of self, because you are associated, you're plugged into the matrix, the screen of life. You're not plugged into who it is that you really are. The kingdom of heaven is inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I loved that Mickey talked about in his interview was the disturbance, going back to this disturbance, which is reaction when we're triggered. That is an indication that we have what he calls a thorn, which is a sticking point. And every time somebody rubs against your thorn, they trigger you in some way, you feel the pain of that. There's like a reaction to that. That's the disturbance. So when I tell you something offhandedly that your mother told you throughout your childhood in a venomous way, I didn't say it in that way, but you receive it because it's hitting that thorn, it's hitting that pain point and causing a disturbance. Whenever there's a disturbance in our life, whenever there's a reaction to something your husband, your kid did, your bank account saying to you, and you're starting to work yourself up, he says again to make sure to lean back into the observer that you are, lean away from the disturbance that is happening, occupy the stillness of the divine self. And in doing that, the thorn, first of all, in doing that, the disturbance always passes, just like a storm always passes across the sky. The clouds always move across the sky. By leaning back and just being with and not plugging into the disturbance, it always goes away. It's when we lean into the disturbance, the reaction, that we feed it. And now we're creating from it and creating more of it. And so, first, we develop the facility to lean back. And then what happens, though, is that thorn, that thing that you're carrying around inside of you, that pattern, that belief of self or others, starts to have the space because you're leaning back. You're creating this chamber of space to start to move itself out of your beingness. And so, all of the things that you're carrying around, all of your baggage, all of your hurts, your offenses, your pains, your unforgiveness, we could call these thorns that are just giving you the disturbance, giving you the reaction so you notice them.
Mm,
because they want so desperately for you to give them the lean back space so they can start working themselves out of your beingness, like a splinter always works itself out of your flesh if you give it the time and space. Oh, I
mhm.
just got the goosebumps from all that. I was just like, yes, I would prefer. And by the way, when you lean back and you operate from your stillness, you can navigate any storm that comes your way, which we see here with the indictment. And you will navigate it better. You won't be taking the plea deal, as you say. You will be so present with the movement and the flow of the divine, and it's always going to take you to the best place. What do you think about that?
I agree. Like everything, it's an alarm that something's the matter. Because if your natural state is to be peaceful, to be joyful, to be at ease, to be excited, and you find that you're not at any moment, you've drifted from
Mm,
your natural state, right? And the things that alert us to that are those negative feelings that we get when somebody doesn't ask how we're doing or expects things from us that we don't want to give, and that's when we go, wow, something's there. Maybe what's there is the need to love yourself enough to have a boundary that you don't have. And so the resentment is coming from not telling somebody, okay, I'm going to stop you right there. I got to go. Right. So the discomfort is saying, do something different, think about it different or act differently, do something with this. And if you do that, then, like you said, there are opportunities for constantly refining the triggers, undoing them, almost like landmines. Like you're going through those landmine fields and you have the little machine. You're like, oh, that was another landmine. Now I don't have to worry about stepping on that or worrying that somebody's going to trigger it
right.
and get like a crazy response. So I think, but ultimately, the thing that I realized is you have to have so much compassion for yourself,
Mm,
so much compassion, because you're just doing your best. Everyone is. And when you find that you aren't showing up like you wanted to, you can be grateful for that too, because it shows you, oh, there's something here, whatever it may be. And then you have the opportunity to take it out of the dark and bring it into the light. Because while nobody triggers you, you don't know what lays underneath. You don't know what's there until it's triggered. So that's why, in a way, you always have to be so grateful for the people and situations that trigger you, because they
mhm.
bring to the light the things that you don't want to look at.
Yes. I mean, and extrapolate out from there the greatest antagonists of your life, the greatest abusers of your life, the greatest enemies of your life, these souls that came here to play that role, only did it
Hmm.
to teach you something about yourself. Maybe it's how to heal yourself.
Hmm.
Maybe it's how to be empowered and embodied in yourself. And the reason they did it is so that you could heal, but then that you could shine that light and others could heal too through the lessons that you've learned in this life. And we see this with Mickey freaking Singer because he's
Yeah.
written a bunch of different books. He's allowed himself to be embodied and he channeled his whole curriculum to his students. And
Yeah.
he funneled the money that he made back into these ministries and these divine spaces and places that people could come to and practice. Like, just an amazing life. Just somebody
So,
who's looking for every single invitation to
so
do
I'm
something.
sorry. You're
Mhm.
saying this, and I'm thinking about how Mickey Singer did change your life and my life and the lives of millions of people with his books and his whatever. But are you following the drama with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle?
With the South Park stuff,
With the South Park and with the Gabor Mate interview of Prince Harry?
I heard he was going to do this interview, but I was too
He
caught up
did.
last week. Okay, tell us
He
about
did. It
it.
wasn't an interview, it was a therapy
Like a therapy
session
session, right?
that was filmed because, they're very private people.
Right.
And most private people film their therapy sessions and then
Right.
charge $60 for people to watch it. But it's so crazy. I don't even know what to do with it. But one YouTube video was critiquing the interview, and the lady was saying, this guy is so self-unaware that in one point he says, yeah, I wrote the book because I really want to help people heal. I want to help people like awaken, and through understanding my suffering and how I made it out through the other side. And here's the thing, I don't think because you're a prince, you're not entitled to have
Mhm.
suffering and that you can't have bad things happen and trauma. Of course you can. You're still a human being. But it's a little bit thick to lay it on. When we have the problems that we have and the horrors that people have gone through, for you to be on a pedestal complaining that your life was so horrible every other chance you get, that to me shows that you're so unaware of the suffering that's really going on in the world and what people are really going through. You think people are sitting there with their popcorn going, oh my God, poor Harry.
Right.
Oh, poor
Right.
you. The
Right.
50, $100 million Netflix deal must really suck or whatever it was, you know? So this woman said, in what way does this guy think that him writing a book is is transforming people's lives for the
Mm.
better? And so this is again where you can fall into this narcissism where when you and that's the thing that the cartoon kept showing, like that their names they would say like influencer, a prince, victim. I
Right.
don't know what, I don't know what, I don't know what, victim.
Right.
And it's true. It's like it's nonstop boohoo for us, you know? So
Hmm.
I don't know what you think about that, but I was rooting for them. You know, at the beginning, like everybody else, I was like, this is so cool. This is so modern. Like I wasn't really a fan of her because in and of herself, like I just didn't, you know, but I was happy. I was happy that he seemed to find somebody that gave him peace and she was bringing something new to the royal family. But as time went on, I'm like, what? Are
Hmm.
you kidding me right now? So I don't know what you think about that.
Well, I am annoyed. I mean, I think his book is called Spare. Like
Yeah, it's
right
called Spare.
there on the cover of your book, you are saying that you were forgotten, invisible, runner up forever, real runner up energy, and that you're a victim. And it just
Hmm.
goes to show how people are so involved in staying attached to their story, the story that they've been telling themselves for years, that he would say he was a spare. Like that's the story you are telling yourself versus the life that you want to create for yourself, the thing that you are moving toward. And like a non emphasis on the thing that you are moving toward means that you are not conscious to it, in my opinion. And I think that it's all vanity, narcissism. Like, did the therapy appointment interview even happen if it's not filmed? Does it even
Right,
matter unless I can show
right.
it to the world? I'm like, ew,
Hmm.
it's so icky. And I thought the South Park
Oh my God.
representation was hilarious. And
But did
they
you see Chris Rock?
no,
What?
what happened with
Those
Chris Rock with
that
Will Smith?
he no.
What
Chris Rock just attacked them in his latest Netflix comedy and
special? Okay,
said, "Listen, she said her she said her in-laws are racist, and she's been suffering from racism." He's like, "That's not racism. That's in-law shit." You know, he was like, that's what
right.
that is. He's like, everybody has that with their in-laws where they don't accept you, where you feel not good enough, where they act like one cold hot with you. He's like, he goes, and he just goes on to say all these different things that she has claimed. And he himself, being an African American man, says that is not racism. That is not what that is.
It's
There
in-law
are a lot of
shit.
things that we do that we offend each other and hurt each other
Hmm.
that are in families, and it has nothing to do with racism. It has to do with the nature of a family with very different personalities and different needs. And when you're coming in from a completely different culture, different country, different culture, different everything, of course you're going to have conflict.
Yeah.
And that's not because you're black or white or Latin. It's just, it is what it is,
I
you
mean,
know?
yeah. I mean, I don't. I'm loath to invalidate her experience there because we weren't there. And if somebody, I think somebody
True.
said something to her. I mean, who knows what that was about? But the place of absolute privilege that they come from, and even Megan before she married him, like just a place of absolute privilege to then victimize yourself on the world's platform is just like it's a terrible misuse of your life force and energy, in my opinion. And it is
Agreed.
exhausting to me at this age because I mean I was super caught up in projecting myself as a certain thing, and I was very attached to my story when I was younger, and I had all my problems. I wanted to talk about my problems so you can relate to my problems. Do you see me? Now I don't care if you see me. And I was thinking about this when you were talking about how your reaction could be when you're talking to somebody who's just word vomiting on you and never asks about you. Your reaction could be, what's wrong with me? Don't they see me? Don't they care? Or it could be, I don't need them to see me. I don't need them to care.
Exactly.
I know exactly who it is that I am. I'm this. I'm this stillness, I'm this divinity, I'm this godhood that
Mhm.
stands here at all times. I don't need your validation. And so when you see, and we're a little older, I'm older than you, but we're a little older, when you see people so caught up in the masquerade of labels, needing to label you and to label me, and projections and filters, it's just a testimony that they are not conscious to everything that they could be and are already. They don't see themselves.
No, they don't. And that's the thing because, I'm a Latin woman which who has like mixed race everything. I have gone to places where I have experienced blatant racism and exclusion and all the things in the world that you can imagine. And so I never would minimize that topic or anyone's experience of that because like you said, it is very personal.
Mhm.
Um, and who's anybody to say, oh, if you were hurt or you felt that people were discriminating against you, then that's your experience. But I think you've got to take that into perspective when you're going to make a claim against the entire royal family, against all of Britain, against everybody, and you want people to feel bad for you. I'm like, seriously?
Right, you're
Like
using it to advance your position, and that's the problem
yourself.
with labels right now.
Yep.
Calling everybody a fascist or calling everybody a deplorable or calling everybody a racist is
Mm-hmm.
just a weapon to silence them or invalidate their
Mm-hmm.
message or what it is that they're saying or who it is that they are. And so that's why it used to be it used to have currency. It used to have
Yes.
importance when somebody leveled that kind of accusation against somebody else. But now it's just like everybody's a racist. Everybody's using the same weapons against each other. Why? Because we can't have discourse, because we can't actually be with one another and accept one another exactly as we are. It's that presence, the ministry of being present with people. We're not willing to do that. I'm not willing to see you for who you are. Neville Goddard says everything is just me pushed out.
Mm-hmm.
That means
Mm-hmm.
you are just me, showing me me. Thank
Exactly.
you, God in me. But like, we're
Mm-hmm.
not living in the reality of that.
And allowing people to not be perfect. I am so over it. Like this whole BS of everybody having to be so perfect. That doesn't exist.
It never has.
It never has. And while we're on physical planet Earth, I don't think it ever will.
Mm-mm.
Unless this thing like explodes or goes to another dimension or I don't know what. Like people are innately imperfect. They're going to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to say things. Somebody will trigger you because somebody is going to think the opposite of what you think, is going to touch your thorn or whatever it is. But you have to also hold space for other people to have opinions, even when they piss you off.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the nature of a free society, not in an abusive, threatening way, but in a way of, hey, we have ideas here. We all disagree. That's okay. Make your intelligent point about what your belief is. Okay, I'll hear it. And then I'll tell
Mm-hmm.
you my rebuttal. And let's be a community. Let's explore this together.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't understand how people can stop being family members over politics.
I know.
How has this happened?
And it's happened so quick. It's happened so quickly, like in the last
My
5 to 10 years, that we have lost our ability to be companionable and commiserate with people of differing lifestyles and opinions. Like back in the day, 100 years ago, in the salons of old, with like Tolkien and C.S. Lewis battling it out over philosophies and ideas, like they looked forward to the
yes.
marketplace of ideas and sharing their knowledge and listening to what the other person had to offer and making adjustments around new knowledge and changing their opinion
Hmm.
on things. But now in this day and age, that's so it's so reviled. And like the moment you make a shift in any direction, like your philosophy changes or you start to mature and maybe you don't want to do the things that you used to do when you were younger, like then you're called out and labeled, and so people are forced into silence. This doesn't work, and it's never going to work, and it's really the weapon, and it is the preferred weapon of an authoritarian elite, okay, to silence you based on your opinions until you are perfectly conforming to
Hmm.
who everybody says you ought to be. That goes 100% against spirituality, honey. That goes 100% against being authentically who it is that you are at any stage in your life. As you're learning to be alive on this planet, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to do something wrong. And hello, I've done so many things wrong. And if I didn't have the space to do that, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. I wouldn't know right from wrong, right? It's just like this echo chamber bubble that we are creating that doesn't allow people to be people.
I feel so bad for the kids too, like
Oh
the
my
children. Like,
gosh.
I mean, I would be terrified if I was 13, 14, 15, 16, and was looking out through my eyes going, man, there is no room for error here.
Right.
There's no room. So better not do anything, or better just do what everybody expects.
I mean,
Because if I
not your
have
parents, but like your friends, your trends, your social
yeah,
media people,
and
what did they
even the
expect?
parents and even everybody and all of it, it's like there's such a price to pay for your individual thoughts and ideas. And especially if these run counter to the norm of your microcosm of a world where you live, which varies. I'm sure Texas has a very different paradigm of reality than Curacao or Holland or Paris, right? Everywhere you are, you have these different sub realities. And as you're there, you have to behave in that because the price that you pay for
Mhm.
not is so high.
And people don't just want to people don't want to have discourse. They don't want to just silence you. They want to eliminate you
Oh, yeah.
from the landscape.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are people out here who were willing to have folks who didn't get the row jab, willing to let those people not get any medical attention for anything because they didn't conform and comply. There are people out here who would rather see people of a different political party dead,
Right.
straight up dead, than on their planet with their opinions. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the very dangerous place that we find ourselves. We have gotten so caught up in the illusion of this reality and shifted our identification away from divine self to the reality, to the matrix, to the Maya, so as to believe that that's who we are and that we're part of this moving machine. Moving us where? It's animating our shadow. It's animating those
Mm-hmm.
things in ourselves. This is the disturbance, hun. I believe this is the disturbance. What's happening on our planet is the disturbance asking for you to lean back, provide space, go to your stillness, and allow it to pass. The shadow, humanity's collective shadow, is asking for healing. It's making itself available for the healing. What
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to do is lean in, contribute to,
Right.
expand upon, and manifest further within the disturbance. We have got to get into the stillness of who we are as who we really are, the I am of who we are, in order to clear that.
Yeah.
That's what we got to do.
And it's hard because you're going to get triggered. Like you said, you're going to get triggered and you got to look at your trigger and you got to say, what are you trying to tell me?
Yeah.
Why am I so threatened by this?
Yeah. What's it
What's
connected
so
to?
threatening? What is that? Be curious, right? Be curious about why. Why this response? Why this belief? Go
And
explore it.
when was the first time in your life you ever felt that?
True.
Because that's the key right there.
Oh, right. Every
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Every time. Wow.
Yeah. So we kind of went out off on a little tangent, but
Yes.
these things need to be said. This is who we are as people. And
Mm-hmm.
this is what we believe. And so I'm going to share that. But in summation, really good book
Very good book.
for somebody who may not be as interested in like the intricacies of his business building, which I still found to be quite interesting as an entrepreneur, honey. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I might prefer to read The Untethered Soul, which I'm going to get and I'm going to read. But I learned so much, and what a beautiful offering to the world. Like, what a beautiful lesson he's offering us.
Yes.
This awareness of true self. I am not the thinker. I am not the thought. I am the God, little g, that stands behind that and witnesses. And Oprah even asked him, who are you? Do you know who you are? Because that's his quest, right? I just want to know who I am. And also, how do I turn it off? And he said, well, at this stage in my spiritual development, I am the seer. I see what's happening. And that's all I have to do, and that's all I have to be.
I love it.
Well, before we end, Elenique, we did get a couple of emails in the last week or so, and I was thinking maybe we could read them. Are you into it?
I would love it.
Okay. The first one comes from Lisa A. And she says, "Hi again. I just wanted to say how much I'm enjoying the way you two ladies break down this book for us out here." Well, thank you.
Thank you.
We have fun. I'm still wondering where my own fine line is on when to say yes to, or what to say yes to and what not to. Some opportunities arising for me might be good, or it might be passing energy still attracting into my vibration. I'm not sure. Either way, I'm surrendering to learn. This month, I've said yes to a request from an acquaintance to do ballroom dancing, and I'm really enjoying it.
Wow.
That is so cool. I've also just surrendered to the day-to-day stuff and just learned to enjoy it instead of complain, such as working or the endless winters we are having. Something else that's happened in my life is that in the summer, my brother suggested I reach out to the family of whose daughter passed away in the same car as my dad did back in the 80s.
Wow.
Just this week, I finally got a response. I had been scared to reach out in August, but I did, and I'm so glad. The love that they had for my dad was so beautiful. Now more and more of his friends are reaching out to me with beautiful stories and soon, hopefully, photographs. Sometimes we just need to take the risk and be vulnerable. I've never felt so much love. And all this at the same time that I'm reading this book. Such beautiful synchronicity lining up for me, it feels like. Sending you ladies so much love. Thank you for all that you do, Lisa.
Wow, what an amazing story. I'm
Well,
so happy to hear that, Lisa. And, this is exactly why we wanted you all to share your experiences because it just gives us so much hope to see that when we are brave enough, like you said, it takes an act of bravery to surrender and to trust. But then you're rewarded, right? You're rewarded for that faith and it's just wonderful to hear that you're stepping out of your comfort zone and that you're being rewarded with love and with new experiences. And thank you so much for sharing that. I don't know what do you think about that, Crystal. I think it's amazing.
well, I thought that her sentence where she says some opportunities arising for me might be good, or it might be past energy still attracting into my vibration. This idea of like leaning back and having the
Hmm.
thing float by, is it something that
Hmm.
I'm supposed to harmonize with, or is it supposed to just float away?
Hmm.
Um, I think that the more you work with this surrender experiment, the more you'll be able to become familiar with what is being divinely offered, which
Hmm.
in my experience has a different kind of meaning and resonance to it. Like there's going to be the divine energy is going to be present in the divine thing that's being offered. It's going to be there. If
Yes.
it's not, if it's like the disturbance, if it's the thing that's just being cast off, that'll have a different signature and you'll be able to soon tell the difference. So keep doing what you're doing. Sounds like it's working wonderfully.
Sounds like it's working.
Okay, next one, a little bit long. Dearest Crystal Ann and Elenique, I wrote you a quick email last night and you read it on the podcast. Thank you for reading all of our emails, Crystal and Elenique. That is so special. It was like getting a big hug and I was smiling about it all day. Oh
Oh.
my God. She likes us. She really likes us. For me, my surrender experiment began about 10 years ago. My partner died in his sleep at the age of 59 of natural causes. Overnight, with no explanation, my life changed. We had a 10-year-old child, and that helped me keep going despite the shock and grief that I was experiencing. I noticed the only time I felt okay was when I was on my yoga mat doing yoga. So I meditated and practiced yoga every day for my mental health. Then the owner of the studio suggested I take yoga teacher training. At first, I said no and could not imagine where I would get the $3,000 to pay for it, but she let me work off the payment, $20 an hour. It took all summer. I was lucky to get this opportunity. I looked at it as a time of self-healing, had no goal to teach, just wanted to heal. When my time there was done, another teacher walked into the studio and asked if I would teach 3 classes that she wanted to give up. By this time, I had been grieving for about a year and had decided to say yes to whatever the universe offered. After 6 years and many studios, I found the perfect job for me. I am blessed to have 30 to 60 people in the room doing yoga with me, and I love my yoga tribe. Found your podcast last year and listened from the very first episode. It awakened something holy in me, like a reminder from spirit. Recently, a small studio reached out and asked me to teach for them. I said no. My schedule was perfect for me, so I saw no reason to do it. Sounds like Mickey Singer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't need to do this. Then
No.
they asked again, and I said no, thank you again. Finally, while we were studying the Surrender Experiment book, they contacted me a third time, and because of the book, I said yes.
Wow.
I'm getting vibes. I didn't
Me
vibe with the
too.
new people. She says, I didn't vibe with the new people. The classes were tiny, only 5 people. And I asked myself, why am I doing this? Then the light bulb moment came. My new boss got an email from the Human Resources Association of Northern California Peace Officers. They asked if she would give a talk and lead a meditation. That wasn't her thing. So she turned to me and asked me if I wanted to do it. Yes, yes, yes. Right place and right time. After that, the blessings began to rain down on me. I got pranic healing gigs, home and restaurant clearings and blessing gigs. Then the bigger studio, where I've been asking to teach meditation for 6 years, asked me to teach meditation with sound bath. I can feel my life opening up again after a long period of darkness.
Wow.
I give credit to your beautiful podcast and my own surrender experiment. I jump
Oh,
for joy whenever a new episode pops up. I'm a very sensitive being, and when I do these spiritual healings, I notice that I need a lot of rest after, so I do nothing and I just rest. Remember how much you are doing by being the light workers that you are, especially you, Elenique.
ah,
Maybe you are also a sensitive being, and the fibromyalgia is the body's way of getting you to rest. You both are
yeah.
making such a difference in this world. Sending you both love, gratitude, and healing prana, Jennifer.
Wow. I don't even know what to say to that.
I don't either. I'm moved by that.
Me too. What an amazing story.
Thank you, Jennifer. That makes me
Thank
feel
you.
really great.
That makes us
And
feel like we got a big hug.
yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy for you. And I really think this is a display of what is possible when we let go and stop over analyzing. And you never really know
Mm-mm.
whether that person that you meet that doesn't make any sense to your life is actually just a bridge to the next person or opportunity that you're going to meet.
Yeah.
And so moving with the flow, even when it doesn't make sense, but trusting that
Mm-hmm.
it's always going to lead you to the right place, as we had discussed in today's episode.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
lovely. Thank you guys so
Thank
much
you.
for writing in.
Thank you.
Again, we encourage you guys to reach out and talk to us. We love hearing. It really does for me, Elenique. It validates what we're doing because, of course, we get together, we have fun either way.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
fact that there are folks out there reading the same book, it's like we're both under the same moon.
Yeah.
They're reading the
Yeah.
same book. They're
Yeah.
having the same epiphanies. They're
Mm-hmm.
doing the thing and they're receiving the transformation. That's wonderful. Thank you.
That
Thank
is
you.
wonderful. Thank you,
Thank you.
guys.
And until next time, we love you, everybody. Stay safe, stay warm, stay in the light.